Rebecca Nurse, the daughter of William Town and Joanna Blessing, was born in Yarmouth, Norfolk, England. She was baptized at a Puritan church on February 21, 1621. The Towns took part in the Great Migration when they decided to move out of England and come to the New World. The Great Migration was the movement of thousands of English partisans to Massachusetts and occurred between 1629 and 1643. When the Towns arrived at Massachusetts, they settled in a small village called Topsfield. In 1645, at the age of 23, Rebecca married Francis Nurse. Francis Nurse was a successful tray maker who crafted multiple items out of wood that were essentials to farmers. The money Francis Nurse earned enabled the Nurses to eventually rent a 300-acre farm in Salem, Massachusetts from the town bishop that Rebecca and Francis lived in with their 8 healthy children. This farm is now known today as the Rebecca Nurse Homestead in Danvers, Massachusetts. Living in the house next to the Nurse's property were the Putnams. The two families had many disputes with each other. One was a fight over eastern boundary of the homestead that bordered the Putnams' property. This fight was never resolved. There were a few more, but in 1692, their rivalry was brought to a whole new level. The Salem witch trials occurred in 1692, between February of 1692 to May of 1693. It was a hysterical time period where the fear of witchcraft spread throughout Suffolk, Essex, and Middlesex counties, and especially the Salem village in Massachusetts colony. Young girls had randomly started displaying symptoms of hysteria by going into convulsions and fits uncontrollably. They started accusing others for torturing them through the devil. This started spreading to other girls in the village and spurred the fear of witchcraft in the town. In the end, 13 women and 6 men were accused of witchcraft and hanged, and many more were imprisoned. Rebecca Nurse was the last person you would expect to be accused of witchcraft. She was a deeply religious 71-year-old great-grandmother. Her whole life she spent free time either in church or studying the Bible. She was a generous and kind woman and was highly respected in her town. As the fear spread throughout the town, more and more people were getting accused of witchcraft. Anne Putnam's daughter started having these fits and strange convulsions. She accused Rebecca for them. She claimed that she was being haunted by Rebecca's ghost, who was tormenting her and urging her to write in the devil's book. Soon after, more and more people started agreeing that Rebecca was performing witchcraft on them. Rebecca was charged for witchcraft and brought to the town meeting house where witchcraft inquiries took place. Rebecca had pled not guilty, and immediately after, her accusers had fits once again, acting as if Rebecca was causing them. Rebecca was sent to Salem prison. On June 2nd, she went through an examination that would determine whether or not she was a witch. She passed the examination. At Rebecca's trial, many had accused her of murdering their family members, but the judges were done with taking spectral evidence at that point, and therefore their accusations weren't valid. That was the only evidence presented against Nurse. Also, 40 of Salem's well-respected citizens signed a petition on behalf of Nurse. For these reasons, the verdict was made not guilty. Right after the verdict was announced, the afflicted girls had an outcry. The courtroom was once again in chaos. Some of the judges also did not agree with the verdict. One of the judges asked Rebecca about a woman who had admitted she was a witch. Rebecca had simply stated that the woman was one of us, and that was misinterpreted in the court as Rebecca stating that she herself was a witch. The jury re-evaluated their verdict and changed it to guilty. On July 19, 1692, Rebecca Nurse was hanged at Gallows Hill without a proper burial. Her grandchildren secretly retrieved her body and buried it back at the homestead. After the trials, the judicial system was greatly criticized. The judicial system used in the Salem witch trials was made of 5 simple steps. The first is, someone would make an accusation about someone they believed was a witch and told the magistrate. Next, the accused would be arrested and taken into examination. If the magistrate thought they were guilty, the victim would be sent to jail and then to a trial. Third, the evidence used against the victim would be revealed to the grand jury, and if the grand jury found them guilty, the accused would be tried in front of the court of Oyer and Terminer. A jury chosen by the court decides whether the victim is guilty or not guilty. Those accused were accused solely based on suspicion or spectral evidence. There was no requirement for a lawyer. If someone spoke out against the court's decision, siding with the accused, they themselves would be considered witches. In Salem, since it was largely made up of Puritans and the religion was revolved around everything including the court, Most standards were based on biblical morals, and the courts were mostly biased. It is important to study Rebecca Nurse and her involvement in the witch trials for a couple of reasons. One is that, through learning about her, it is easier to understand how the Salem witch trials helped redefine the American court system into what it is today, especially the concept that you are innocent until proven guilty, whereas before it was the opposite. Another reason is that the Salem witch trials are what showed spectral evidence isn't trustworthy. Spectral evidence is a form of evidence that is based upon visions in a dream, that those afflicted by the supposed witch were visited by its spirit that would torment them. Since there were so many accusations with only the use of spectral evidence, and many were killed because of it, the use of that kind of evidence against a person wasn't allowed anymore. Rebecca Nurse was one of the victims of the witch trials that was accused by multiple people from the use of spectral evidence, and that was the absolute only reason she was sent to jail and tried for witchcraft. Rebecca Nurse is an important figure in the Salem witch trials, and through her involvement in them, it is possible to understand how the court system worked in the trials, see how life was for a person who went through the trials, and show how they were a part in redefining the court system into what it is today.